Hello, fellow weebs, and welcome to a series called Zero Hero, where I compare two anime that have a strong theme of heroism and base them on two characteristics. Which one has the better theme of heroism, and which one has the better heroes in general. The two series that I will be comparing today are My Hero Academia and Inuyashiki. Although My Hero Academia is more well known and obviously has bigger and better and way more obvious heroes, Inuyashiki still has a strong theme of heroism that I wanted to explore in this video. In My Hero Academia, obviously they're meant to be heroes, and that's what a lot of people want to do as their actual occupation. And so they will try to be heroes out in the open and even use their abilities or their quirks to try to be either as flashy as possible or take down as many villains as possible. Because in My Hero, there's also the factor of popularity and not just actually how many cases you've solved. It makes having a flashy quirk, or at least a flashy persona, or something that stands out, very important for being a hero. In Inuyashiki, it's just a regular world, so it's something completely different. In Inuyashiki, only two people actually have zero superpowers, and those two people are Hiro and Inuyashiki. Hiro and Inuyashiki were both given robot bodies with a few different and powerful abilities. One of those abilities is that they can heal people just by touching them, and they can heal deadly diseases or just regular injuries. Another ability they have is basically a finger pistol from One Piece, but it's not actually a finger pistol, but more like an air bullet, so it can work from a longer range. And also, because they're robots, basically any part of their body can just open up, so they actually have jet boosters in their backs, which allow them to fly. Also, they can use technology and basically use them in their own brains. Like, they would use their phone, but instead of showing up and actually having to type it, they can kind of just use it with their mind, which is very useful in a multitude of situations, as you could imagine. The two series actually have a very different idea of heroism, obviously, because in My Hero Academia, heroism can be defined as a lot of things as well, but the main two things that I would define it as is actually the amount of cases that you've solved, and I would also base it on your hero spirit and ideals. Degu's probably the most obvious example of someone who has the best hero spirit, because obviously he's just very kind-hearted, and if he sees someone in trouble, even if he doesn't have an ability, he'll go try to help them out. And even if his quirk is very flashy and stuff, I feel the problem with him is that he doesn't know anything about property damage, or at first he didn't know damage to his own body, and that could end up hurting a lot of people or the surroundings. In My Hero Academia in general, I also don't like this because even in a lot of situations, they're supposed to be heroes, right? And heroes supposed to save people properly, but instead they end up having a lot of property damage and a lot of other things that are happening, and it just doesn't seem logical. Maybe it speaks to the threats that they're facing, but it doesn't seem very efficient or they're actually very worthy of being heroes in certain cases. And Inuyashiki, on the other hand, the two main characters that got superpowers, they're completely different. So basically, when they got their robot bodies, Inuyashiki, he had his robot body, but he retained his humanity as well, and Hiro, the other character, he lost his humanity as well, basically. He was already kind of a psychopath before, but it kind of just took it to the next level when he was given this ability, because then he felt like he basically had free reign over the world and would just kind of kill families for fun, which I don't really understand, but it's anime. I feel like being a hero is also based on your ideology. And people in My Hero Academia obviously have very differing ideologies. For instance, Endeavor is pretty much an anomaly amongst heroes in his ideology, even if he has like a very good grasp of actually being a hero and being able to save people. His ideology honestly just stemmed from his superiority complex and him wanting to be better than All Might for most of his life. And once this goal was actually taken away, when All Might lost his powers completely, Endeavor kind of broke down himself and he had to rethink his ideology. And that's when his redemption arc kind of started. His ideology before was just kind of to win and to win against All Might as his goal. And he didn't care what he had to do to stop it or get to that goal. And so he even ended up hurting his family in multiple ways, like just abusing his son, ignoring his family, making his wife go crazy to the point where she boiled water onto her own son because he reminded her of her husband, and the list goes on. But that like change in his character is something that's so fascinating, because it's just like he was like something before, and then once it was taken away completely, he had to rethink his whole life and every decision he had made in the past, which made him like a much better person and someone who actually wanted to change, and also someone who wanted to help out Shoto in not like a pushing way. Well, yes, still in a pushing way, but not something that's like aggressive or forcing him as much, but actually like more of an encouraging way. And even if it looks like he might be dying in the manga, spoilers, it still seems like his character arc is like coming to an end, and he's kind of like learning from his mistakes, which is good, even if something extreme had to come in to help him learn that. Another person with an interesting ideology in My Hero Academia, and is probably another one of the most obvious examples, is Stain, because he had his ideology, but he also felt like he could inflict it upon others without their consent. And he, even though he wasn't a hero, he felt as though he had to make hero society be right for whatever reason. And even if he had his ideology, he also had the power to back it up, so he could pretty much do whatever he wanted. His quirk also is not very fit for hero society or his face. Seems like a very scary person, and in situations like My Hero Academia, where people are basing things on looks and abilities, then it's easy to see how he could be tainted in his ideology and eventually become so much of a crazy individual that he wanted to kill heroes because he didn't deem them worthy of being truly a good hero or something. In Inuyashiki, Hero's ideology is also very interesting, and his character arc is also something that changes often when he goes through traumatic experiences that eventually even he finds traumatic, even if the world found what he was doing before to be traumatic. I feel like he had like a big character change over the course of the story, because at the beginning, basically at the beginning of his journey, he saw a man commit suicide by jumping in front of a train, and that kind of started his journey of his mind mentally being like just strange and messed up. And eventually that kind of led to him having his robot body and then going crazy. Then as he continued, Then, of course, karma happened, and the consequences for his actions came back, and eventually people found out about him, his family, and he kind of had to go into hiding. And even when his mother found out, then he thought everything would kind of be okay because he kind of had free reign of the world with his abilities, but he didn't realize that things would come back to haunt him, and his mother could not take her son being a serial killer and eventually killed herself as well, like the person on the train. This is one of the moments that actually like really made him rethink what he was doing, and eventually he stopped being such a psycho but actually wanted to find like some kind of semblance of family again. And when he went into hiding, he actually ended up going into hiding with one of his classmates and her grandmother. And so she didn't have her parents with her, so I feel like he kind of connected with her because they both had not like a complete family at that point. And so he kind of wanted to keep her close. And this is where his character like does a 180 and he starts saving people instead of killing people. But of course, karma catches up to him again, and the government is obviously trying to find him because he's a serial murderer. And then so basically what happens is he is hunted down, and then he feels like he has to keep his family very close to him. So instead of trying to actually like pay for what he was done, he decides that if he can't be safe in this nation, he will kill everybody in the nation except his family, which once again makes him become a psychopath and like a killer once again, and less of a human, more of a robot. His character keeps changing and evolving, which is something I find really fascinating. And instead of like being set as something, he eventually grows and changes. And he's also 17, so he's still thinking through things and growing as well as a person and just as someone who's moving into adulthood. This is how I feel like he differs, and he actually feels like a much better character than somebody like Deku, who is someone who is very stable, I guess, and he, even if he was timid at first, he kind of just has this honest idea of him being a hero, and that's like all his character is, I guess. There's like not much else to him besides him being a crybaby, I guess. Yeah, but another character that's in play in Inuyashiki, who I also like better than Deku, is a character named Ando, who is actually Hiro's best friend. Or at least was Hiro's best friend. And because he had seen his best friend now doing all these traumatic things to other people, he kind of had to decide if he wanted to keep their friendship or if he had to sacrifice it to save his world, or his nation at least. This like was obviously something that was hard to choose because it's like the person that he kind of appreciated the most in his life, but he decided that he actually had to stop him and fight against him, which made him team up with Inuyashiki eventually. Inuyashiki, however, he's also a strange example of any basically anime character because he kind of is just a 58-year-old man who is just trying to help people out, kind of, and he's just a nice guy overall, I would say. And he would just kind of save people he sees on the street instead of actively trying to be a hero or anything else, which makes him fascinating because he's not conventional in any sort of way. He's older than any protagonist I've ever seen, and he's also just doesn't have any goals or anything. I guess that probably also has to do with how aged he is as a person, which also connects to his name. His name is Ichiro Inuyashiki. Ichiro basically meaning first son, which probably connects to his age and how old he is, and Inuyashiki meaning doghouse, which could have a few meanings. First of all, he actually has a dog, and I think that the main point they were trying to get with his name is basically how he takes people in that he doesn't even know. Like, he will just help people on the street, and also he is a family man and he cares for his family and the people around him. On the other hand, Shishigami Hiro, his name Shishigami, at least it means lion god, and that makes a parallel between the two characters because they both have connections to animals. One's taking in people, and the other one is a god. And I feel like this connects to the part of his character that feels kind of omnipotent and can decide the fate of the world by himself. And hero can mean a few different things, but the main part I took away from it was its actually connection to the English word for hero, and how he believes himself to be kind of like the hero of his own story, and he can like judge others no matter what because he feels like he's like the center of the world, I guess, and he can kind of decide the fate of others himself. On the other hand, My Hero Academia's names are a little different, and I feel like Deku's name, Izuku Midoriya, connects more to what he was like at the very beginning of the series. Midoriya means Green Valley, and basically I was thinking of this like his life being at kind of like a downward point and how he'll like go back up again, because at the very beginning of his life he was obviously like a very happy kid, but then once he realized that he wasn't going to get a quirk, that's when his life like went downhill for a multitude of years, and he got bullied for a long amount of time. I feel like none of the characters I talked about in this video could be considered a perfect hero, especially not Stain, but a lot of them come close to it in different aspects. Hiro, besides his name, actually ended up being very heroic at the end of his series, and basically the reason why him and Inuyashiki were given robot bodies in the first place was that they were basically supposed to stop this meteor that was going to come and kill all the population and destroy the earth, basically. And so Inuyashiki was actually going to do it on his own, but at that point Hiro had actually realized the consequences to his actions and wanted to save the world. So he sacrificed himself to destroy the meteor, basically bringing his character arc to an end. This actually makes him very heroic in my mind, and I would actually put him as the number 2 in being like a hero in mind. The one who I would put as the number 1 as a hero in mind is, of course, Inuyashiki, because he is actually, I don't think of him much as a hero, but more as a nice guy, which makes him more of a hero in my mind. This just shows that he's not like someone who's trying to do this for some kind of goal or some kind of ulterior motive, but he's someone that's just genuinely nice and will just reach out to people when he sees they're in trouble. The number 3 person that I would say is like the closest to being a hero and ideal is obviously Deku, and he comes really close to hero, but I wouldn't quite put him as the number 2 spot. The one that I would say is the best hero in general is actually Endeavor, and I wouldn't include Deku or All Might actually on this list, because All Might is currently out of commission and not actually working as a hero. And Deku, even though he is like a great hero and has already accomplished many things, he is not actually graduated from school, and I wouldn't actually consider him a full-fledged hero. Besides winning by default, Endeavor has actually won the most cases as a hero, and he has probably saved the most people, even if people don't recognize him for anything besides that, and they don't expect him to be like an outgoing hero or anything. And then Deku's probably the number 2 besides Default, who I would consider to be the best hero. And if I were going to include All Might, he would definitely be in the number 1 spot. So that's basically the end of the video. If you liked it, please do leave a like. This is the first video on my channel, obviously, but I want it to grow and people to see my content. So basically, like, subscribe, all that other YouTube stuff that people want. And that's pretty much it. So, bye.